Earlier today I got the running papers for the book that I've been writing for a wee while, Roads Were Not Built for Cars, which is subtitled How Cyclists Were the First to Push for Good Roads and Became the Pioneers of Motoring. And I thought I'd flick through it to give you a bit of a preview. So here's the 21-page index, and it's an index of a general index and as well an index of names. These names here are the people who helped support the book, so they're the Kickstarter supporters, thanks to them. Appendix B is a whole bunch of the brands that started as bicycle brands and became famous motorcar brands, so Rover, Rolls-Royce and 62 others, a whole bunch there, including there's good old Henry Ford there. There's a history of roads timeline, and the final chapter is, in fact there's an epilogue before that. There's the epilogue, and then the final chapter, which is a social history of cycling up to the present day, really, but how it also interacts with motoring in the 1930s. This chapter is Without Bicycles, Motoring Might Not Exist. So that's all the different organisations that were motoring organisations but founded by cyclists, from the Automobile Club de France to the Automobile Club of Great Britain. But it wasn't just organisations, it was motor shows were founded by cyclists. It was the first racing drivers were cyclists. The first motor racing circuits in Great Britain, that's the one in Bexhill, started life as a cycling boulevard. There's some early racing drivers, so that's Stocks of Great Britain, and that's him as a cyclist, and that's him as an early racing driver. So a lot of motoring magazines were founded by cyclists. A lot of the technology in bicycles went across to the first cars, so shaft drives, tubing, differential axles. The knucklebone axle was a direct transfer from cycling to motoring. Pneumatic tyres were incredibly important to motoring, and they came from cycling. Okay, so this is motoring's bicycling beginnings. This is all the people who helped create motoring. There's Charles Rolls of Rolls-Royce. That's him on his racing quad at Cambridge University. There's then a 16-page colour section to brighten it up. America's Forgotten Transport Network is all about the bike paths that America had in the 1890s and early 1900s that were world class. So you've got the Coney Island cycle path, and you've got the California cycleway, on trestles there. And Good Roads for America, it was all about the Good Roads movement in America, which came from, it's Henry Ford again, which was actually inspired by a British organisation called the Roads Improvement Association. What the bicyclists did for roads is a chapter about the Roads Improvement Association, which was founded in 1886 by the Cyclists Touring Club and the National Cyclists Union, a good 15 years before motoring came along. So the cyclists were pushing for better roads long before motoring came along. Then when motoring did come along, those cyclists morphed into motorists and became parts of the motoring hierarchy, basically. Hardtop history is the history of the road surfaces, right the way through to asphalt. But what kind of road surfaces did the cyclists help get? Width is all about the width of the roads. They certainly weren't widened for motorists. An awful lot of roads have been wide for an awfully long time. So I talk about the history of the width of roads. The speed chapter is all about how motorists certainly get a lot of the blame for forcing cyclists and pedestrians off roads using speed, but they certainly weren't the first one. There's a long history of speeding on roads, including by cyclists. Who owns the roads is a chapter discussing the rights on roads and why some people believe they've got more rights to be on the roads than others, and so that discusses why that's not quite the case. The roads are actually for everybody, not for one certain class of user, whether they've got motors or not. The pioneers is 10 people who helped create motoring and were actually arch cyclists before they were motorists. This guy, Henry Lawson, was actually tried to invent a whole lot of bicycles before he got into motoring, and very much helped create motoring or getting motoring legalised in Great Britain. That's the house of bicycles in Frankfurt. That's where Carl Benz, that's where he bought the parts for the first automobile were bought in that shop in Frankfurt, a bicycle shop. All of it, of course, bicycle parts. And then we have When Two Tribes Were One, so that's the chapter talking about how cyclists and motorists were exactly the same people in the 1890s. They weren't two tribes, they weren't lower class cyclists and upper class motorists, they were exactly the same people. And the foreword to the book is written by Edmund King, who's the president of the British Automobile Association. He's written me a very nice foreword for the book. And then the front cover of the book, which this is the printed cover, so this is the soft back of the book. That's the back cover, so that's a Benz Velo in front of a Coventry bicycle shop. There's the spine. Now I can quickly show you. This is an alternative cover for, this is the dust jacket for the hardback copy of the book. So that opens like that, same back cover. Oh, and there's me, and that's a shot by Byron at Bike Hugger. Thanks, Byron. So that's the alternate cover, and that's the cover for the softback. And the book is out real soon.